Welcome to the deep dive. There's nothing quite like the buzz around a new smartphone, is there? Especially, a flagship release.
Oh, absolutely. The excitement starts building way before anything's official.
Exactly. Whispers and leaks. It's a whole pre-release frenzy. And for you, this early info, it's kind of a superpower, right? Helps you stay ahead.
It really does. You get a sense of where things are heading.
So today, we're putting on our tech detective hats. We're investigating uh, a ghost in the machine, the rumored Samsung Galaxy S28.
Yeah, and understanding these early insights, even if they're just rumors, means you're not just reacting. You can sort of anticipate
You can set expectations, maybe gauge the market trends a bit.
and make more informed decisions about your own tech plans long before anything actually hits the shelves.
So our mission for you today is to take this raw, speculative data we've got, mostly from my Fusion Mobile excerpts, and turn it into something clear, something actionable.
We're going to unpack what this phone might be, what it could mean for you.
And crucially, what this whole phenomenon of really detailed leaks about products that don't even exist yet tells us about tech hype.
It's fascinating stuff.
Okay, let's dig in then. Our source, my Fusion Mobile, it talks about the Samsung Galaxy S28. What exactly is its current status? Like, is it real? Can you buy it now?
Definitely not. The source is quite clear. It labels it upcoming and coming soon.
Right.
And it gives dates. Announced June 2025, released June 2025. But, and this is the key bit, it explicitly says it's a hypothetical phone
Hypothetical.
and completely unofficial. The info is just based on general trends.
Yeah.
Think of it as a very educated guess.
Okay, so if it's completely unofficial, purely hypothetical, why should you, our listener, even, well, care? How does this kind of intel help you prepare for actual future tech?
It's all about foresight, really. And managing expectations. Even though these specs are speculative, they give you a hint, a strong indication maybe of where a company like Samsung might be going.
I see. So you can anticipate potential feature.
Exactly. Compare them with what you have now. Decide if maybe an upgrade down the line is worth waiting for. It's like getting a sneak peek at a possible future roadmap.
Lets you budget and plan your tech buys more strategically.
Precisely.
Fascinating. Okay, so it's still a phantom phone. But if it did materialize, what are we talking about physically? What might you actually hold? Let's talk design, the screen.
Well, according to this data, the dimensions are listed as 163.6 by 75.5 by 8 millimeters. Weight is 200 grams.
Okay. Standard sort of size, weight.
Pretty much. For the build, it says glass front, Gorilla Glass 5, so fairly durable.
Right.
But then a plastic frame and a plastic back.
Oh, plastic. Okay.
Yeah. And importantly for everyday life, it mentions an IP65 rating. Waterproof and dustproof.
IP65. So that means it should handle what? Splashes, dust, a bit of rain maybe?
Exactly. Accidental spills, getting caught in a light shower. It gives you a bit more peace of mind in daily use.
All right, let's move to the screen because, for many people, that's where the magic happens. What kind of display tech and resolution are we seeing in these hypothetical specs?
The source points to a 6.67-inch dynamic AMOLED 2X capacitive touchscreen.
Dynamic AMOLED 2X. Okay, that sounds premium.
It usually is. It means, really vibrant colors, deep blacks, excellent contrast. The resolution listed is 1080 by 2436 pixels.
1080p.
Yeah, which gives it about 393 pixels per inch density.
393 ppi. Is
Yeah.
that typical for a flagship S series?
Well, that's where it gets interesting. While 1080p is perfectly sharp for most people, Samsung's top-tier S phones often push for higher pixel densities like QHD plus Gamma.
Right.
So seeing 1080p here, if this S28 were real, it could hint at maybe prioritizing battery life over that absolute razor sharpness. Or maybe it suggests this hypothetical model is more of a light version, or perhaps not even the main S series flagship at all. That'd be a pretty big shift for Samsung's strategy.
That is a great insight. Yeah, hinting at potential trade-offs even this early. Okay, so beyond the look and feel, performance is key. What's speculatively running under the hood of this S28?
Okay, so the engine driving this thing, supposedly, is Android 14 is the OS.
Right.
And the chipset is listed as a MediaTek Dimensity 6020.
MediaTek Dimensity 6020.
Yep. Built on a 7-nanometer process. It's an octa-core CPU, 2 faster 2.2 GHz Cortex A76 cores, and 6 efficient 2.0 GHz Cortex A55 cores.
Okay, and the GPU?
Listed as an Adreno 750. Now, this is where it gets, really intriguing.
How so?
Samsung's main S-series flagships almost always use their own high-end Exynos chips or Qualcomm's top Snapdragon processors.
Yeah, right. Always the top stuff.
A MediaTek Dimensity 6020, while it's a capable chip, it's generally found in more mid-range phones.
Mid-range. In a supposed S28.
Exactly. So this specific spec, if it were true, would be a huge departure for a flagship S series. It really makes you wonder if this leak is maybe for a different phone category altogether or signals a very different pricing approach. That's a massive potential shift, yeah. And the RAM. How much memory are we talking?
It's listed as a pretty substantial 12 gigabytes of RAM.
12 gigs. Okay. So if you pair that 12 gigabytes of RAM with this potentially mid-range chipset, what does that actually mean for you for your daily multitasking app performance?
Well, that raises a really important question, doesn't it? How does this hypothetical performance stack up? The source actually mentions comparisons to the S24, iPhone 15 Pro, Vivo X Fold 3 Pro, Oppo Find X7 Ultra, notes hypothetical differences, of course.
Okay.
Now, with 12 gigabytes of RAM, you'd normally expect really smooth multitasking, handling demanding apps well.
Sure.
But, like we just said, the processor is just as crucial, maybe even more so. So while 12 GB RAM sounds premium, if it's paired with a chip that's usually in mid-ranger,
the overall flagship feel might not quite be there compared to, say, the S24 it mentions.
potentially, yeah. It might suggest a focus on having lots of memory for smooth app switching, maybe to compensate for a less powerful main processor. It's an odd mix on paper for an S-series. A very interesting balance. Okay, shifting gears. For so many of you listening, the camera is just absolutely key. Capturing life's moments. What does the S28's camera system potentially offer, according to these sources?
Right. The main camera setup is described as a triple array. You've got a 50 megapixel sensor, 13 megapixel, and then another 50 megapixel.
Triple camera, 50, 13, 50. Okay. Any features mentioned?
Yeah, standard stuff mostly. Dual LED, dual tone flash for better lighting, HDR for handling bright skies and dark shadows, in panorama mode.
And video.
For video from the rear cameras, it's listed as 1440p at 30 frames per second.
1440p, okay. And what about the front? For selfies? Video calls?
There's a single 32 megapixel selfie camera listed.
32 megapixels, pretty high res for the front.
It is. And it apparently supports 1080p at 30 fps for its features. But get this, it's listed with 4K video recording at 30 fps.
4K from the front camera.
Yeah. That's actually quite impressive. It's something you often see on higher-end devices, suggesting maybe this phone, if real, would aim to be strong for vlogging or high-quality video calls.
That is fascinating. That potential for high-quality video from the front, that's a standout feature, even hypothetically.
Definitely. The source also mentions, hypothetical performance differences between the S24 and S28 cameras based on trends, but that 4K front video is notable.
Okay. Now, staying connected and powered up, vital for everyone these days. How does the S28 speculatively keep you connected throughout your day?
Connectivity-wise, it's listed with support for 2G, 3G, 4G LTE, and 5G. And importantly, it mentions both SA and NSA modes for 5G.
SA and NSA, what does that mean for you?
Basically, SA is standalone 5G, the newer, potentially faster kind. NSA is non-standalone, which relies partly on existing 4G infrastructure. Supporting both means it's built to connect to current 5G networks and also ready for the more advanced ones rolling out, kind of future-proofing.
Got it. So good 5G support, speeds?
Expected speeds up to HSPA, LTE Advanced, and of course 5G. Should be fast data. It also lists extensive GPS support.
Yes.
GPS, GLONASS, BDS, Galileo, QZSS.
Wow, that's a lot of satellite systems. So really accurate location tracking.
Should be, yeah. Very reliable, even in tricky spots like cities or remote areas where one system might not cut it.
And what about other wireless features? Wi-Fi, Bluetooth?
It highlights WLAN, so Wi-Fi, with 802.101 ABNIAC standards, dual band support, and Wi-Fi Direct for connecting devices easily without a router.
Standard Wi-Fi stuff. Bluetooth?
Bluetooth version 5.2. It lists A2DP, LE, and aptX HD support.
aptX HD. That's good for audio quality, right? If you use wireless headphones.
Exactly. Much better sound fidelity, richer audio experience if your headphones support it. And it includes NFC, of course, for things like contactless payments.
And the charging port, still USB-C?
Yep, USB Type-C 3.2, and it mentions USB on the go, or OTG.
OTG, meaning you can plug in things like USB drives directly.
Correct. Thumb drives, maybe even a keyboard or a mouse with an adapter. Adds flexibility.
Okay. Now, battery life. Absolutely critical for your daily use. So what are the sources saying there?
Battery type is Li-ion, as you'd expect. But interestingly, the source seems to list two different capacities in different sections.
Oh, like
One part says 5,000 mAh, another says 4,500 mAh.
a discrepancy. Highlights the unofficial nature, I suppose.
Exactly. It's common in these kinds of speculative listings, but both sections do emphasize fast charging capability.
Okay, so regardless of the exact size, quick top-ups should be possible. That's crucial.
Definitely. Gets you back up and running quickly when you need it.
So beyond these core specs, screen, power, camera, battery, what other features might enhance your user experience? And the burning question for many listeners, what about the price?
Right. Other features mentioned include several key sensors. There's a fingerprint sensor. It's under the display and optical. Also Face ID for unlocking.
Fingerprint and Face ID? Okay.
Plus the usual accelerometer, gyroscope, proximity sensor, and a compass. For storage, the options listed are 128 GB, 256 GB, or 512 GB internally.
Decent options. Expandable storage, a card slot.
Doesn't mention one.
Yeah.
So probably no micro SD card slot, which is pretty common now for higher-end phones, unfortunately for some.
True. Anything else? Origin, colors?
Listed as made by South Korea. And the color options are black, green, blue, purple, and white. A good range.
Okay, now, the price. What's the unofficial word on cost?
According to this source, the expected price in Australia, they anticipated being between 1,500 and 2,000 Australian dollars.
1,500 to 2,000 AUD, depending on the storage variant, presumably.
Exactly. And it draws a comparison to the S25, which the source puts in the $1,000 to $1,500 range for its variants, which apparently went from 128 GB up to 1 TB.
Interesting comparison, but again, we have to stress.
Absolutely. This pricing is entirely unofficial. Pure speculation based on trends and the listed specs. Take it with a huge grain of salt.
Right, okay, and believe it or not, this hypothetical phone, it actually has ratings in the source material.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. The R rating from the experts at My Fusion Mobile gives it a very impressive 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10, across the board.
Pretty much. Design, display, camera, features, connectivity, usability, performance, battery, all get a 9/10.
High praise for a ghost phone. What about user ratings?
And get this, the overall user's rating is a perfect 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Based on what?
Based on a single user review, someone named Rehan.
One review. What did Rehan say?
They called it, and I quote, very nice and my to gift, and gave it 10/10 for everything.
Very nice and my to gift.
Yeah.
Okay. That's quite the endorsement for a phone that doesn't exist. So connecting this back to the bigger picture, how valuable are these kinds of early speculative ratings for you, the listener? Is this just hype?
Well, yeah, that single 10/10 review is obviously more amusing than anything else. It really highlights how powerful early buzz can be, even for, well, vaporware.
Mm-hmm.
The expert ratings, though, are maybe a little more interesting. They suggest that if a device with these specs existed, based on current trends, it would be highly regarded.
So they reflect a kind of ideal or aspiration.
They're valuable as a reflection of maybe collective optimism, what enthusiasts are hoping for. Even if the final reality turns out very different, it gives you a sense of the target they might be aiming for.
Okay, so let's quickly recap the key potential features of this hypothetical Samsung Galaxy S28, based purely on these My Fusion Mobile excerpts. We're looking at a potential June 2025 announcement and release.
Right. A robust triple camera system, but the standout perhaps being that potential 4K selfie video capability.
And that MediaTek Dimensity chipset, which raises some big questions about its positioning as a flagship.
Definitely. Paired with 12 GBs of RAM.
Huh.
And an anticipated price, again, completely unofficial, between 1,500 and 2,000 Australian dollars.
So understanding these details, even though they're unconfirmed, really does give you a kind of shortcut to being well-informed, doesn't it? About where smartphone tech might be heading.
It absolutely does. It helps you prepare for future releases, gives you a valuable head start on understanding the trends, the possible trade-offs manufacturers are playing with.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on. Given that the Samsung Galaxy S28 is so clearly speculative based on these sources, how does all this widespread discussion of hypothetical devices actually shape our expectations for real future technology?
Yeah, and how might this constant stream of pre-release info, real or imagined, influence your decisions about when you should upgrade and what kind of tech you should invest in next?
Something for you to mull over until our next deep dive.